well, thank you guys for joining us for another Health Truth Life video. We are back to the Matrix again.
Matrix.
One of only, 3 that we have left.
22.
Yeah, we're moving right along.
Yeah,
the end is near. And so
the end
is near.
What does that mean?
You can take that multiple ways. There's some truth to that in more than one way. But we're under relationships, and today we're going to be going over community.
Yeah.
And another very important, vital part of life.
Kind of friends,
Yeah.
neighbors,
Yeah.
those outside of your family. We'll talk about family next week.
Yeah.
But just the fact of being in community. And how it plays a role in either a state of health or a state of disease.
Yeah, for sure. There's physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. It can help or hurt in all of those ways, being in community or being out of community.
Right.
So you do have a quote here from the great Jordan Peterson. He says, adopt responsibility for your own well-being. Try to put your family together. Try to serve your community. Try to seek for eternal truth. That's the sort of thing that can ground you enough so that you can withstand the difficulty of life.
It almost gives me tears, honestly, because I think myself personally have been through some things over the past few years that literally I feel like I'm sometimes getting torn into. And I understand that that's a toil of life and what we go through. But my one desire is to honor God with the way that I lead my wife and my boys, and also be an example to other young men and young women and just people in the community. And I pray for that for everyone in the community, because it lifts everyone together and it makes you know that, hey, your purpose is really not in what you have for yourself. It's in for others.
Well, man, be encouraged. You're that for me. Like, you are living that out, and I thank God for you. You're part of what we're going to get into. You're a part of my community, and you've been a blessing to me and my family. And so, be encouraged. You're doing that. Bring it in again. Bring it in again.
Community. That's right.
Let's go.
There you go. I like it.
Yeah. All right. So there's a lot to go over here in the community, but I love how you start this out. You say, why does the concept of Mayberry, for those of you who aren't familiar with
That's
it,
right. For anyone less than 30 years
I know,
of
most
age,
people probably
or 40,
don't.
right?
Oh man, my dad loves the Andy Griffith Show. So it's a small town from a very popular show back in the day, the Andy Griffith Show. I grew up watching it. So the tranquil small town from the Andy Griffith Show resonates so much with people. Why does it resonate so much with people? And this town, where heaven and earth seem to coexist, is where children play in the streets without the concept of threat, doors remain unlocked, and imperfect parents raise their children without the bounds of within the bounds of righteous structure, goodness, and godliness. It is where small business is the norm, while large corporations are absent. Towns like Mayberry are where Sundays are reserved for worship, faith, family, friends, and rest, and where the challenges of life are always placed into eternal perspectives. Man, can we get back to this? I want to be in Mayberry. Wow.
So I think a component of this is that I think we kind of live in an area like that. I believe I saw that in the Panhandle through the past few years, and just the strength and resilience that we show in the Panhandle during hurricanes. I've got a component of that in there.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people listen to that, or I listen to that and I go, man, my heart is just tugging for simplicity, faith, family, community, and just getting back to basics. And this is, again, what this matrix is all about. It's just like, and it's not mine, it's literally just flowing through us just to get out to people and just encourage y'all, with the simple parts of life that do lend typically in many people to states of health, not to disregard what other great doctors are doing. And we have a patient that just had a big surgery just a few weeks ago, and praise God, he's doing great, life-saving. He's doing great.
Yep,
and
so
but needed surgery at a local hospital, Baptist hospital, and is doing fantastic, thankfully. Man,
community though, you're right. There is so much positive. It's a life-giving, fulfilling thing, and it's so vital. And that's one thing that I kind of wanted to bring up, and I feel like it's interesting. God covers this in the creation story. So we were created for connection and community. And he shows that in Genesis chapter 2 when he's talking about going through creating everything. And after he gets done creating everything, he's like, and it's good. He saw that it was good. He saw that it was good. Do you remember what the first thing he said that was not good?
That man was alone.
It is not good for man to be alone.
Wow.
Man.
Wow.
Like,
I haven't picked that up in the context of what we've seen the past few years and the amount of isolation that was perpetrated on the public and on you and on everyone. And so
that's what I'm going to kind of get into here with what's happened through COVID. The amount of, isolation. We were pushed, kind of forced to, or told to stay in your homes. Don't go outside. Don't be around your family. Don't be around your community, be by yourself. And the stats have, just gotten worse and worse and worse. But I just have a couple here that talk about the effects of loneliness. And this first one, the subjective feeling of loneliness increases your risk of death by 26%, according to a new study in the journal Perspectives on Psychological Science. And then this one was kind of crazy. So loneliness has far-reaching consequences that the health impact is comparable to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day, according to a study published in the journal PLOS Medicine.
Okay.
Gosh. Wow. So, being alone and being lonely is such a negative thing for us physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. We were not created to be alone,
Yeah.
And so it's,
no question.
Yes, no question. Loneliness is associated with an increased risk of heart disease, depression, and cognitive decline.
IQ lowering, and loneliness, depression, which depression is associated with IQ lowering as well. Like all that just tied together with we have to encourage and allow for community always for the betterment of physical, mental, and emotional health.
It's for the well-being of humanity, for humanity to flourish, and for the well-being of us as individuals, as in a whole. Exactly. It takes community. We can't do this alone. And this last one, it talks about social isolation in seniors raises the risk for chronic health conditions, dementia, and early mortality, and the detrimental effects have only grown more widespread in these recent years. Man, I witnessed this. This makes me sad, but I know that God is in control of life and death, and so, but 100%, my Nana passed away through COVID, not from COVID. She passed away from the loneliness that was pushed on her by those that were calling the shots, She was healthy and doing great, before this all started. She was in her late 80s, so as healthy as you could be for late 80s, but then, she was a valid part of a church community. They would go out and meet during the week and give flowers to patients in hospitals, and she would regularly volunteer and do things within her community. That was stripped from her, and she declined so quickly as a result of having to be home alone, watching the news, not being in her community with others. So
exactly.
We've lived this. We all have. I know everybody has those examples, but it's so important for us, to spend time together in community. Having people to count on during times of trial is invaluable. Knowing that you are in relationship with individuals who have your back when the storms of life inevitably show up at your door, it allows for better emotional stability. I'll get into one personal example. You did bring up the hurricanes. Hurricanes here in our area, they devastate. Like Hurricane Ivan, man, that one crushed us. But you're right. In those moments, it is so cool to see the community rally together. You forget about all the crap, all the nonsense. I met so many of my neighbors I had never met before.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody came together. We were grilling out and cooking out and meeting together in the mornings and drinking coffee together and
cleaning each other's pools,
helping each other. Yes,
cutting down
trees. Yes.
I didn't live through Ivan, but lived through Sally. A few
Okay.
years back, and yeah, that was definitely a collaborative effort to help get the communities back in.
Yeah.
We lost electricity for I think it was 6 days then, or maybe 4 to 5 days, maybe something like that. But the point is, it allowed for it does, and so it's almost like one of those things where it's the irony of challenge leading to blessings, which is just so far beyond my brain.
Yeah.
So
my personal story is, with my son Wyatt last year. This was only a year ago. I feel like it was longer ago, but a year ago we were in Gainesville. Just over a year ago, we had to go to Gainesville for a second surgery. He ended up with a tumor in his arm. Weren't sure if it was cancer or not. Had surgery here. Kind of didn't have the success that we wanted. The tumor kind of was growing instead of shrinking. Ended up, and thanks to you, and it's just so cool to see how this is why you're a valid part of my community. First of all, you took the liberty and you wanted to help just by reading his initial X-ray. You said, "Hey, bring that image in. I want to see it." It was read as clear. You saw that it wasn't clear. You found something that wasn't found by the other radiologist, and so you started the process of his ultimate healing. And then you encouraged us after we went through the process here to have the surgery and didn't have the success. You helped us find that doctor at UF. So just
he's great. The
great
surgeon
physician.
at UF, fantastic surgeon. So
again, surgery is necessary. Big medicine, like sometimes you do need healthcare. Like you do need the surgeries. Those procedures are necessary.
Is he using his arm almost 100%?
So cool. I mean, he is. Because
he's an athlete.
Yes. I thought he was just going to be forced to play soccer and use his feet his whole time. It got to the point where, yes, he couldn't move his arm, but like this. It was locked up, no range of motion. And he's in the middle of a basketball season right now, and he's doing great. Like, he's able to, he's shooting baskets now, so he's able to, like, fully extend his arm. And I told him the other day, I was hugging him, I'm like, dude, I didn't even know if he'd be able to throw a ball or shoot a ball again. So, like, it's such a blessing and a gift, but man, going through this process, though, to have someone like you in my life, other friends praying for me, I'm blessed to be a part of a great church, too. Our church home, we had to travel to Gainesville. Our church home paid for our hotel, paid for our food. I mean, I just can't tell you how much of a blessing it is to be a part of a community that loves God and that isn't focused on gaining everything, but about giving and sharing, And so just that whole process, as I thought through that, I'm like, man, how different would it have been if I didn't have anybody? Man, I would have felt the weight of the world, and it would have crushed me. It would have crushed my wife, But because of our relationship, first and foremost with God, yes, He carried us through the whole process. But then you, my church family, my friends, like our community, just rallied around, and man, it was turned a horrible situation into a blessing.
It made it tolerable, and also it made it come to fruition in a way. I mean, it literally lifted you up. The community did, and that's what is how community works. By preventing and stripping away the isolation.
So we say, service of community. Let me see, where's that one? There we go. Being in community can take on many forms, from being involved at a local church or community center, mentoring and leading youth who are in need of guidance, to befriending wayward men, local widows, or at-risk children. Often, however, you simply can be observant and available to the neighbor on your street, recognizing that God has a way of putting willing servants in situations where they can be of use to others in their times of need. So even just within our homes, around our houses, our neighbors, like that's another community where, man, I know sometimes it seems a little awkward or hard, to get to know your neighbors, but man, those moments, it doesn't have to take a hurricane. Just look for those simple moments of ways we can help serve and love on them. And it's just a blessing. It is.
I'm going to ask you a question. How important do you think it is to have consistency with respect to your community interactions?
Man.
You've got a men's group you go to, right?
Yeah. I would say that, man, that's so important. It is. How else do we stay connected? Like, if we're not making that effort to meet together to serve each other. If it's going to church, fellowship, and worshiping together. Man, without that, it's true. I do. The times where I miss my men's group or I miss a Sunday at church, I do feel more apt to be nervous, afraid, kind of.
A twinge off, right?
Yeah, like I'm off. You're right,
So I've got a men's group too that meets on Friday here, and we started with, I think, 4 gentlemen, and then now we're up to 18-ish a week or something. Meet every single week, even if it's Christmas Day or New Year's Eve. I mean, it's one of those things where it's a consistent thing. And for us, we found that it literally helps lift and support us. And it's a non-denominational men's group of a bunch of men within the community. And I tell you what, that's vital for me. And it's vital. It's fuel for the battles of life, right? And I would encourage, you out there, whoever and wherever you are, to find that community, whether it's with a neighbor next door or someone, at a local sports center or a local church or a local volunteer organization to meet with consistently, to lift each other up and to support each other in truth and in light and through love,
when you just asked me, it led me to saying that, I feel a little bit off. I didn't feel myself. And there's a quote, I'm not sure who said it, I wrote this down, but I am not myself by myself.
It's a great one.
Man.
I read that earlier and I'm like, I you don't know where that came from?
I'll have to look it up.
That's fantastic. It's a great quote.
It's so true. In those moments, I don't feel like I'm myself. Something's out of whack when I'm not in my community, serving and flowing, and I'm not a part of that community.
I love that idea of the flow, and that's where the flow can get broken if you're disconnected and isolated from your community. But you flow in, I believe that kingdom of God spiritual component that you can't even explain whenever you're in that relationship continually with community.
I love that. And then too, we talked about this too earlier. What I love about my men's group and the community I have there is I can be real, I can be open and honest, and I talked about this earlier.
You're real with them? Are you serious?
Yeah, for real, I'm real.
Man.
Yeah.
Shocker.
But no, like a lot of, but it's, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people nowadays have a challenge though. It's challenging to feel like you can be vulnerable. And that's what I, wrote down here is the only way we can truly connect with others is through vulnerability. And I feel like with my men's group and, at my church, there's people that I can just be myself. I can just, even if I'm struggling with something, if I've messed up, if we're hurting financially, if, I don't know, whatever it is, if I'm sick or weak, or I can just come and be real and vulnerable. And man, these men are going to stand by my side, encourage me. They're going to help me. They're going to help me meet whatever needs need to be met in my family or in my life. Man, that's so, but without that vulnerability, without being real, if we go into these, it's hard to be in community, a real community, if you go into situations kind of puffed up and like, I've got life together, I don't need help, I'm good.
Yeah.
There's no real connection.
And that's tough for men, I think, in general, or I guess I'd say specifically, because we're supposed to have the answers. We're supposed to be the leaders of our family and of our community and of our wives. And, so I think there's a balance of that, of having the vulnerability with also the recognition that sometimes, man, you just got to buck it up and do it, And so, you know what I'm saying? And I see that in you, and I see that in me too, I think, and I see that in most men that are doing kind of leading well, is that I think that balance of vulnerability with we got to get this work done, we got to get it done, and we got to be vulnerable as well, but not live in the vulnerability or in brokenness. And that's where I think, again, finding that balance is so important.
You can get stuck there, you're right. But there is like something to a humble strength, like meekness.
No question.
Meekness is a real thing, and it's needed. Like I said, if you come into those relationships kind of puffed up, then you gotta check your ego and be vulnerable.
Great point.
So in many ways, life has become so busy that many do not maintain enough margin in their life necessary to allow for deep interpersonal relationship with their neighbor and community. So additionally, our newly found extensive digital connections which do in some artificial way foster a sort of cyber community, result in our overall less in-person interactions. Man, that's big too. Like,
yeah,
make time for this. If it's setting aside an hour on a Friday morning like we do, it's so important. If you have to wake up earlier, it's worth it. Like, set the alarm clock a little bit earlier, you know, meet with some people and just get real, you know, be vulnerable, and talk about truth, talk about important things. It's so easy to, in our society, you talked about this though, in the digital world that we live in, just meeting up and talking about nonsense all the time and sharing, you know, talking about videos and sharing videos, and you know, that's kind of like, it's connection, but it's like a weak, what did you call it,
cyber connection,
artificial,
okay.
You know,
yeah, for sure. And then also with, you know, local community groups, you can game plan on how to serve others, you know, and so having a ministry within your your community to help those widows and children at risk and what have you, things like that, whether it's through financial or through lifting, you know, lifting something or doing something. So that's very needed for sure.
And you did go on to this next sentence talk about our human physiology, however, is benefited by appropriate and consistent physical touch and in-person interactions by way of balancing out cortisol and supporting neurotransmitters and endorphins, feel-good hormones production.
Appropriate, engaging, encouraging community lifts your physiology and your neurochemistry. Isolation results in higher stress hormones. No question. So it's like, that's where you need to find ways of where you're inappropriate. Now, some people are introverts and they need their time away from people, but guess what? Even introverts benefit from being in encouraging small surroundings with people they are comfortable with. That's a blessing. And so that's something just to consider, that even for the introverts, having some interaction, whether it's physical touch and or engagement, is certainly going to be beneficial.
There's so much to this. For helping with depression even, I remember when I was like going through a pretty severe depression in my early 20s, I did not want to leave the house. Like, I wanted to stay, everything in me was saying, just lay at home, be sad, you know, that's it. Like, just do that. You can't go outside, you can't face the world. Man, going to a church out here, actually Coastline, used to be Calvary Chapel, but I remember not wanting to do this, but feeling led to do it and just force myself out, and then going there that night and ended up becoming a part of a small group there, a youth group there, and just receiving a hug from somebody.
Shell was broken.
It was broken, dude. And he was going through the same thing. Like, he was going through a pretty deep, dark depression, and like, man, just instant connection.
It's called resonance. In a way, it's resonance and flow, where you resonated with him. You wouldn't have had that resonation and energy transfer, the spiritual, emotional, mental kind of like explosion like that. And that's the beauty of community. And
that was 20 years ago. He's my community. Like, he is a brother, and man, so cool.
One of your good friends?
Yeah, really good friend.
Gotcha.
Really good friend.
Cool. Yeah.
This was really neat too. So community heals, and it helps those with struggles and addictions. I thought this was so cool. But this is a quote from a psychologist, Johann Hari. He says, the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection or community. And if you think, that's so cool. And I started thinking about like a lot of these groups that they go to, you know, addiction recovery groups. Man, like, that's what it is. It's not the steps necessarily. That's part of it, but it's because they're in community.
They're consistent. They're either weekly or daily, depending on the needs.
Knowing that you...
CrossFit's jumped into this too. CrossFit communities have benefited for themselves because they recognize that people who exercise in community oftentimes will hold each other accountable. So there's power to community.
So much power to it. So we have a few steps here at the end to go over. Do you have anything else you want to go over before we get into that? All right. So where can you find ways to be in community right where you are planted? There's opportunities all around us, like we said, whether it's churches, whether it's CrossFit, you know, book clubs. What do you like? Whatever you like or you're into. Or
the neighbor down the street that is a widow that has no one to come visit her. Wow. I mean, that's powerful. I'll gloat on my wife a little bit, who during Hurricane Sally,
Wow.
2 doors down, there was a woman there who's now passed away, but she was a widow, and actually both of her children had passed as well in her 80s. And Crystal knocked on her door to check and see on her, and no electricity. Obviously, I don't think we had water, clean water at that point. Maybe we had water, but no electricity. But was able to garner and get some support from the community to come out and visit her to make sure she had her needs met. That fostered a relationship between Crystal and this woman.
Cool.
And ironically, when she passed away, Crystal was the last person to be with her, praying with her, and just kind of loving her, just telling her, how much God loves her. And like, that was, I think, just special for Crystal.
Yeah.
But like, she never, you wouldn't experience that unless you knocked on a door, right? So, but that's powerful. That's something she'll never forget.
For that woman, then also for Crystal.
Yeah.
Crystal has benefited from that.
There's a synergy, right? A beautiful synergy.
Man.
Yeah. So.
So cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, find those people in your neighborhood or in your community that you can pour into and love on and serve. And then number two, where can you find rest and purpose with those in your neighborhood or city? So that's good. We talked about this. Like, we have these men's groups, and it's not just about meeting and learning and growing, but you're right. Finding ways that we can serve together. And churches too, obviously that's a big part of, or should be a big part of, what we do when we meet together on Sundays, and then throughout our week, find ways to serve the community together,
Right, yeah. Love it.
We have this thing locally that our church uses called the Care Portal, I believe is what it's called. And so we get like messages sent to us, and it's like, hey, there's a family that needs diapers and wipes and whatever size clothes, then it's opportunities for us to serve the community.
Right.
So it's pretty neat. Those things are out there. Just do some research and we can find them. Number 3, have you prayed to identify those who you would benefit from being in community with, or with whom they would benefit from you? So that's a good one. Ask God. Yeah.
Again, it's a synergy and it's a mix, and it's also, and I like the point about going back to the second one, is rest. Where can you find rest in your community with those who are like-minded and or wanting and having your best interest at heart? I mean, I think that's true. That's where synergy and flow happen. And so don't be resistant to that, but recognize that that's where you can find both rest and purpose, right? So
it's neat. I have a gentleman now that I just started meeting with, actually from a couple videos ago. We talked about discipleship. So I've now met with him 2 weeks. This will be our 3rd week in a row. And I love it because, like, from that, it's cool, man. It's on Saturdays, and it's usually after I've had a busy with sports and, doing other things. And then late afternoon, I meet with him. The last 2 Saturdays I have. And it's just like this restful, peaceful time together with this young man, and I love it. God's working and moving, and it's such a cool thing. And I'm serving him, but yet I'm being blessed and being served too. So it's such a cool thing.
Yeah, love it.
And then the last one here, do you have enough margin in your schedule to allow time for a neighbor in need?
Ooh, that's a tough one for a lot of people, and I'm continually working on that. And I think, margin is so important. And, gosh, going back to Mayberry, what do you do on Sunday? You worship, hang out with your family, and you rest. Because that provides margin and rehabilitation and recovery and restoration of energy that allows you to go into your week fully charged. So
we all need that so desperately.
Sabbath, man. Take some time to give yourself, margin, and that has to be built into your schedule by you. We can't do it.
Yeah.
Your spouse can't do it. Your coworkers will not do it. Your boss definitely won't do it. So I'm pretty good. I'll give you a little margin.
It is funny. I love that. I have margin here. It's funny. I remember working where I used to work, and I'd be driving to work. Sometimes, it's no joke, I'd be passing people, homeless people or people that I could tell needed some help. And because of my job, I felt forced. But, I got to the point where even at that place of work, I just said, these people are needed more than I am there right now. And so I did it. Not encouraging you to, you'll feel the Spirit moving and do what you need to do. But I love that. But find the time, if you see that people are in need, you can put things off for a little while, and there's always time to get caught up or whatever. But don't ignore those people around you that could use just a simple gesture,
Absolutely.
of kindness.
Yeah, and you need it too. So we all need it too.
We all need it. Yeah.
Man, what a great discussion, community. Feel free to put down in the comments below where you find your ability to interact with community and how it improves and provides a resonance in your life to uplift you and to uplift others. Yeah. Final thoughts, my friend?
Man, I'm so thankful for community. It's just such a blessing. So I pray that everyone out there, well, if you're not in some form of community right now, then praying that you'll find it.
Break down the boundaries, allow that shell to break, and
be vulnerable.
For sure. Yes. Yeah. Thank you guys very much. We appreciate you, and God bless.
Thank you. God bless.